Hi everybody, my name is Rebecca Gaduk. Some of you may know me as Reb Ayşe or just Reb, and I am the PR and Media Coordinator at Genesee Valley Council on the Arts, GVCA. And I thought I'd invite you into my kitchen for a special Fare and Ware treat to go over some natural dye techniques that I use. So today I thought we could talk about three pretty common materials that you can find in your kitchen or in your yard. We're talking about black walnuts. These are dried and shelled. Onion skins and avocado skins and pits. Here's a stack of some natural fibers. Linens and cottons. Some of them have been pre-treated, but I will get into that. My kitchen setup, and of course my pre-reduced dyes that I've been simmering for a little over an hour or two. Here we have our dyes, the avocado, the onion skin, and lastly our black walnut shells. Okay, so what you're looking at right here is some of the dye separated, just to give you sort of idea of the colors that did come out. On the left we have our avocado dye, in the middle the black walnut, and then on the end is our onion, which is like super vibrant. This one is more of like a cherry red than the avocado, which looks a little more orangey, which I mean, I don't know if the camera picks that up super accurately, but I thought that's kind of something fun to look at. I've also strained, for the most part, our dyes on the stove, and we're gonna get ready to soak. Okay, so I've filled up one of the basins of my sink with warm water, and I'm going to unfurl some little sample test strips that I've made. And I said I would talk about pre-treating fabric. Luckily for this specific kitchen experiment, we don't need to do that. Soaking your fabrics in soy milk is definitely an option if you're looking to strengthen the colors of your avocado dye. And then some other natural materials call for you to use alum or iron. And alum you could find in the sort of pickling aisle in the grocery store. Will produce brighter tones, whereas iron that you can make at home with rusty nails or rusty anything will actually deepen the colors and oftentimes shift the color to a more gray or brown or even black, depending on the concentration. I talk about weighing our materials. We weigh our fibers so that we could know how to pre-treat, what percentage of the weight of goods we are going to mix up for our alum or our iron. Luckily for today, we do not have to get into that because we're using some really fantastic materials that actually have tannins in them, and the tannins also act as some sort of adhesive, allowing the dye to actually penetrate and bond with our fiber. So some good dye materials to use in that way. We could talk about tea, we could talk about turmeric, we can talk about black walnuts like we're using, avocado, and the onions. I highly recommend, if you are interested after this video, to look up Rebecca Desnos, and I will link that in the notes. She has a pretty inexpensive PDF that kind of goes through this more thoroughly, but for our purposes, we can just pre-soak our fabrics. All of these have been pre-washed by me before anything, and and we could put them in the dyes. So here I am soaking my fabrics. I left them in there for quite a while. I think I ate lunch in between, and then I squeezed everything out right before I put them into my dye pots. Wetting your materials allows the dyes to kind of evenly absorb. Of course, I ended up putting my fabric into the dye pots a little bunched up just because of the, you know, holding the phone, whatever. As you can see, when you put your fabric into the dye baths, they'll start to gradually accumulate color depending on the type of dyes, like the walnut or the onion that we saw before.
Here is our progress.
You can see how vivid they start to get. The avocado was a little slower going. That one's a little more subtle. But once we've reached a tone that we like, I actually left these in here for about an hour. Then we rinse them off in cool water, making sure to get off any excess dye so it doesn't run onto the other things when we hang it up to dry. I was really excited about this yellow that I got from the onions, and then seeing the variety of brown from the walnut dye was just really incredible. The avocado dye was the last one, and it ended up being a really pretty pale pink.
So I'd like to take a minute to explain what's going on with these test strips, because this can be a little confusing, but I did touch on it, the mordanting process, which each of these I used a screen to print some of the different variations of the mordants. Didn't show up too well just because each material, this one being alum, this one being a mixture of alum and iron, and this one being iron, have different consistencies. The iron always being more liquidy. So it printed a lot clearer than, say, the alum. I'm doing this in a spare bedroom in my house, so I don't have the most official equipment. But I wanted to give you an idea of the variations in color using those mordants. It's pretty spectacular, and I actually didn't expect such a huge difference with these specific dyes, but here we are. So here are some of the results from our project. You're looking at some walnut dyed fabrics. They're a little bit washed out through the camera. Hopefully I can take some accurate photos to share later. But these are our onion skins and our avocado dye. More test strips. I really like this. I guess maybe it's a chenille or something. It's pretty transparent fabric, but it really held on to a lot of that pigment, which is super exciting. Some linen, some cotton. We have back here our avocado dye. This is definitely one I'm gonna have to photograph because the camera is not doing it justice. But let's move on over to some of the onion skin. These are super vivid, almost orange. Again, phone camera not so great. We do have some discoloration. I was not super careful about how I was putting these into the pots. It's a little hard to do that while holding your phone sideways, but I'm okay with the inconsistencies in the color. I think that'll be fun. I actually cut out some of these pieces to piece together a shirt that I'll sew later, but here is a tea towel that I had in my stash, and it really took on so much color. Thank you so much for tuning in to my natural dye demo and for participating in our virtual Fare and Ware festival. This year has really thrown a lot of curveballs at us, but there's something really special about being able to gather creatives from this region together to put them
in the public's eye, to highlight what they've been doing, all for the sake of sort of reminding us that we're all in this together, and we deserve to be seen during this time. I'll try and give an update on how these fabrics do when they dry. Sometimes the colors will, when they dry down, they end up being a lot lighter than they look when they're wet. But if you check out the blog on GBCA's website, we typically, or not typically, I have shared in the past some of my own dye projects, specifically with the avocado dyes. I realized that this time the dyes were absorbing a lot lighter than usual, and I think that might be because I skipped the soy milk soak in the beginning, but I have written about that on our website, and if you're interested, I'm more than happy to answer some emails and, assist. I think it's really cool to be able to do something like this in your kitchen, and I think I've adapted it in my practice because I don't have access to the same facilities as I've had in the past. I'm working out of a bedroom, as I mentioned, in my apartment and in my kitchen, so it's fun to adjust and adapt, and I'm sure all of you are kind of going through something similar too. I'd love to chat. I'd love to hear what people are going through, working through at home. So feel free to reach out. And once again, thank you. Please enjoy the rest of the festival.